Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the August 4th, 2022 edition of Collect Our Cousins, Engaging White People in the Struggle for Full Democracy. I'm Karen Fleshman, founder of Racy Conversations and of Collect Our Cousins. I created this weekly live stream to help white Americans like me become more effective in our conversations with white people in our lives, to help us build an embodied anti-racist white culture, in the words of Resma Menachem. I'm featuring the people who inspire and teach me the most. White Americans, the battle for our democracy will not be won in courtrooms or in the streets. It must be won in white living rooms, neighborhood meetings, school board meetings. As an anti racist, collecting my cousins often falls to the end of my to do list. Oh, I'll get to that next month. But if you're on here today, I would like to invite you to join me in the Collect Our Cousins Challenge. Write a list of your friends and family you will collect this year. There are 21 million Americans, largely white, who believe that Donald Trump is the legitimate president and political violence may be necessary to restore him. And there's millions of other Americans who are neutral or undecided. And it is our job, white Americans, to reach and teach our cousins. And with that in mind, I am so honored and delighted to have my good friend, just amazing, amazing woman who I admire so, so very much. Great mother, great friend, great uh, uh, analyst of all things political, and just amazing human being, Saira Rao. So thank you so much for joining us today, Saira.
Thanks, Karen.
What could you share a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm first and foremost, I'm uncivilized, so I'm from a shithole country, apparently. Um, sure. I am first generation Indian American. I am one half of Race to Dinner. My other half is Regina Jackson. She's a Black American, and we started Race to Dinner in 2019. And we meet with white women around the world via Zoom and in person in this country, in America, to talk about their racism, not their dad's racism, not their son's racism, not their husband's racism, not the Republicans' racism, not the South's racism, but their racism. And it has been wild. And so we've been doing this for a couple years. Regina and I have a, let's see, I got it. I got my advanced copy. White women,
Okay, so
everything you
beautiful.
already know about your own racism and how to do better. So we don't let them engage in their feigned ignorance. White women, Karen, you already know everything because you all created white supremacy. You benefit from white supremacy. And this whole, oh my God, teach me, teach me, teach me. It's like asking Shakespeare, like it'd be like Shakespeare asking us to explain to him Twelfth Night. He wrote the fucking thing. Um, and we have a movie doing the film festival round right now called Deconstructing Karen. So it's a documentary about our work. And so that's what we do a ton of in real life stuff, and now we have this book and movie out, and we have 5 kids books. We're packaging kids books. We have 5 middle grade kids books, which I'm sure will be banned out of the gate in half of this godforsaken place. It's called the Race to the Truth series. So it's going to be a different book written by a BIPOC person about the real, honest, horrific truth about this country.
Excellent, excellent. And what drew you to having these dinners with white women, and how did you and Regina come to be a
Sure.
partnership?
So I ran for Congress in 2018 against a super Diana DeGette, let's say her name, super liberal white woman who's now been in Congress. At that time, it was like 2 decades. Now it's 3 decades. She's been in Congress forever. She's done zero jack shit. And her staff, she told us that civil rights weren't one of her issues. And so I decided I was one of the last people in 2018 to file to run in the primary against her. And so I lost, obviously. And Regina Jackson worked on my campaign. And she saw firsthand, I had a long line of white ladies circling around the block. This is in Denver, Colorado, super liberal, super white Denver, Colorado. They're all waiting to talk to me, not to, give me support. Absolutely did not support my campaign, but they wanted to tell me how not racist they were, how I've got them wrong. I'm wrong about everything, but I'm very articulate. And so I tolerated that during the 5-month Fast and Furious campaign. And then after that, a white man, a queer white man actually, who had been in the state legislature of Colorado, he trolled me on Twitter and basically CC'd on Twitter tons of media, and ended up getting me on the target of Breitbart, Fox News, all of the alt-right places. And the next thing you know, death threats, people are coming after my kids, all of this stuff. So the intrigue around what I was doing suddenly became much bigger and worse, frankly, after that. So in the fall of 2018, Regina and I'd become friends. One of her friends, we'll call her Karen, said she'd been a supporter of my campaign, and I put on Facebook, I'm no longer on Facebook, but I put on Facebook, Beto O'Rourke is a white savior. I gave him money and I said I'd still vote for him, but he is a white savior. That's apparently the straw that broke Karen's back. Karen calls Regina and says, I'm done with Saira. She hates all white people, and then pauses and says, but would you set up a lunch or a dinner for me with her? I'd like to talk to her. So I, had heard this song and dance plenty of times. And I said to Regina, I'm not doing that. But how about this? I've got a laundry list of white women who've asked for the same. Mm-hmm. And what if we put them all together? And if you come with me so you can, be part of this, I'll do it. Let's do it. So we did. And it was a full, white woman, the Broadway musical. There's crying, there's pacing, there's rolling of the eyes, all things that these women think were really unique and groundbreaking. Like we'd never seen it before. Right. And, posted about it on Facebook, like, oh my God, this was fucking crazy, and it just went viral. It went viral, and we had by the end of the day, like 300 plus women from around the world, white women from around the world saying, I want to do a dinner like this. And we were like, you know what? We do this anyway. All we do is like sit around and try to educate or, educate these white ladies. We might as well get paid for our labor if we're doing it anyway. And Regina came up with the great name Race to Dinner, and that's how it started.
I love that story. And I love that was also around the time when you and I met, because I remember reading your Huffington Post about running for office, and I was like, this woman is awesome.
Yeah.
But I am so grateful for you for doing that, and for convening these conversations, because as painful as they are, I think this is how we really move forward. Like just yelling at people, pointing fingers, and causing like further polarization. We need to come to a shared understanding of what racism actually is, and what do we do to stop practicing it, both interpersonally and systemically.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, Karen, white supremacy and racism is not the elephant in the room. It's the room, it's the house, it's the earth, it's the water, it's the sky, it's everywhere. So, I mean, white people had tons of comments on what we do. We have no team, we have no PR, we have no marketing. We have been Today Show, Guardian, like New York Magazine cover. I mean, it's the intrigue around what we're doing. All we're doing is literally having conversations about your racism over dinner. That's it. Nothing more or less than that. And it's groundbreaking, And so people come in, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? How about this? Why don't you go do that? Like, you should go do that. We are just two people doing dinners. Like, it's this notion that we're doing it wrong. We should be doing it differently. Like, we should be doing more. We should be doing less. We should be including this. Then you should go do that.
Yes.
Sincerely. It's going to take.
This problem is so monumental.
It takes a village. It takes all of humanity. So go do it. Nobody is stopping you. And I take issue, and I'm glad that you didn't call me an activist. I take issue with those of us who are doing anything besides working on Wall Street, or like working for a tech company, or working for an oil and natural gas company, as being activists, we are all, it's not my job, it's not your job to go change oppression and bring down oppression. It is everyone's fucking job. And to pin this term activist on someone is like, oh, that's what you do. I'm over here making money. I'm over here making money, but you go do this. And then, God forbid, you as an activist charge for your labor because you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that.
Right.
It's such a massive con. White people are the greatest con artists, and they call the rest of us grifters. So I just, the whole thing has been a fascinating, and I'm, college I'm the model minority. I'm the perfect model minority. University of Virginia undergrad, NYU law. I clerked on the Third Circuit. My office was next door to Sam Alito's. I worked at Cleary Gottlieb on Wall Street. By the way, when I ran for Congress, I was told repeatedly that I wasn't qualified. I lacked one qualification, right? One. So that was my not being qualified. And that's it. I mean, it is wild to me how people pin everything on everyone else, and we all need to get in this game. Because humanity is going to be over. Humanity will be over, and people don't seem to give a shit.
Yeah, it's really, really, really apparent, as we were just talking about before the show started. Yesterday, my daughter said, "Mom, it feels like it is the end of the world."
Yeah, I mean, it's not the end of the earth. Earth should be kicking our asses out.
Yes.
Like it is humanity.
Kicking our asses out.
Birds are falling from the sky in India. I mean, you live in California, a big chunk of your state is burning down to the ground. Kentucky is underwater. And Virginia, where I live, parts of Virginia, mudslides underwater. I moved from Colorado recently. I mean, let's talk about the fact that the outskirts of Boulder, suburbs of Boulder, literally, if you drive by there, I don't know if you've had a chance to do that because I know you're originally from Colorado, but if you drive by where those fires happened Christmas of 2021, it's down to the studs. I mean, entire neighborhoods, and these are $1 million neighborhoods. These are rich people.
That was my friend's neighborhood.
Yeah.
Their house somehow emerged intact. The entire neighborhood burned to the ground.
Right.
Like
totally.
that.
Totally. Yeah. No, it's really something else. And we call it all sorts of things. We call it cognitive dissonance, right? Like language is really important. We call it white fragility. It's not white fragility. It's white supremacy. It's not cognitive dissonance. It is denial, purposeful denial. Numbing. It's not just like, what is it? You all in DEI spaces call it like unconscious bias. What the fuck is that? It's conscious racism. Mm-hmm. So we even have this flowery language around this stuff. We don't have time for this. We really don't have time for this. And it is going to take everybody. It is going to take every single person. So, I mean, I'm kind of at a loss at how much people are in denial, really, to their own, frankly, people don't care about themselves. White supremacy, capitalism, colonialism has robbed us of our humanity. And now we're like, I don't care if I'm going to be dead as long as I'm wearing Lululemon and I'm holding a $30 green juice,
At least for this moment, I feel good about myself because I just stepped out of Soul Cycle.
And I was trying to find the quote. It was a very clever Black woman who said, if white women spent as much time fighting racism as they did trying to lose weight, we would have been done with this shit centuries ago.
Long ago, yes. Yeah. We have Nyla Christian. Thank you for joining us, Nyla.
Hi, Nyla.
Sarah Plummer asks, can you share that book name?
Yes, again, please, Sarah. Order it. It's coming out in November, but you can pre-order it right now. White Women, Everything You Already Know About Your Own Racism and How to Do Better.
Awesome.
And please do pre-order it because pre-order sales are critical to a book success, and it's very hard for BIPOC authors to break out as it is. So that would be awesome.
Thank you. Act of solidarity. Thank you, Lisa Robinson.
Oh yeah, by the way, that's why I was talking about my pedigree. My pedigree, by the way, all nonsense, right? The only reason is you have to be the best, and Black women and Indigenous women have to be the best of the best. And even though I had all these perfect qualifications, I wasn't qualified. So
And you were a brown woman who actually raised her voice and had something to say about what is right or wrong. You
Not
must be
just a brown
destroyed.
woman, model minority. So even the whole model minority myth was created for us Asians to, let's be clear about why my family's here. So the British, we call it colonization, but it's genocide. The British committed genocide in South
Mm,
Asia. And so the South Asian diaspora exists because of that. How did my parents get to come here from their shithole country? Because of Black people in this country. Black
mm,
people in this country died for 1964 Civil Rights Act, and on the heels of that, 1965 Immigration Act. So what did we do? What did my people do? We come over here to escape the ravages, the ravaged subcontinent, and we come over here and are taught to treat Black people
mm,
as worse than us and always treat white people better than us. So we come here with our anti-blackness and repeat the same paradigm that has been created by white people. And then we're white people dubbed us a model minority. Why? Why? To keep Black people down. Look at
mm,
these people. Look at these people. They come in. By the way, I'm not a descendant of chattel slavery. I came here and my parents both had medical degrees. To
mm,
compare me to a Black person is fucking wrong, and it's ahistorical. It's not true.
mm,
So to say that I like it's just wrong, but it's all made up. So what we're in a scenario now where Asians feel better than Black people. We hate ourselves because we're not white. And we're all just part of the ecosystem. So part of Race to Dinner, by the way, and I talk about it at every dinner, and it's so funny. I wish Regina was on this call because, she'll say, who in this room is racist? Nobody. Of course, no white woman is racist. Okay, fine. Who in this room would trade places with me or Saira? Also, nobody. We've done this with hundreds of women now. So at least they're honest about that, right? No, we're not gonna trade places with you and Regina. Okay, and then I'll say, gun to your head. You have to trade places with one of us. 100% of them would trade places with who?
mm,
Me. So let's be clear. You know the ecosystem of racism, of white supremacy, of anti-blackness. And that's the other thing is we sort of talk about white supremacy, but we never talk about anti-blackness in the
mm.
mainstream discourse. And you can't have one without the other. We need to dismantle both. We have to
Yes.
dismantle both. And we have to be honest about our role in it. And that goes for Asians. It 100% goes for Asians.
Yes. And also, I mean, I was married to an Asian immigrant, and he experienced tremendous racism in the workplace as well. Like they were very happy to hire him, pay him a good salary, and he worked extremely hard for them, but there was only so high he could advance within the organization. The
Of
real
course.
leadership roles are always reserved for white people.
Of course. I mean, my first, and by the way, like this clerkship that I got after law school,
Hmm.
I think it was in Philadelphia, massive city, Third Circuit. I might have been one of two law clerks in the entire building, hundreds that wasn't white.
Wow.
And my super liberal white judge, woman, referred to me as her Pocky. Okay. As her Pocky.
Wait,
And
what is a
so
Pocky?
that's the derogatory slur for South Asians.
Oh,
Yeah.
like Pakistani, like
Yes. 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 And the
she's a
first
she's a federal.
yes, and the first week of work at my law firm,
Mhm.
super liberal, Manhattan, all of it, right? I walk into the partners party and they're passing around not they don't call it appetizer, canapes. Like, it's like the monarchy, the super liberal white monarchy. Uh and I walk in and the dude literally claps. I'm a brand new associate and he goes, "You're from India, snakes and elephants." Claps. And everybody starts laughing. And I'm just standing there like, "Oh my God." And I too, and this is the self-loathing part. This is the you're lesser than part. I laughed too, and I grabbed a little goat cheese croquette or whatever the fuck they were passing around and a glass of champagne. And that was the story of Manhattan liberal, Harvard, Yale, NYU law was a just a marathon of that. a marathon of that. And so you have to shut up and be grateful and thankful. And the minute I was everybody's favorite, I was everybody's favorite token. The minute I said, oh my God, this is wrong, I became crazy. I
Mm,
became angry. I became divisive. Something was wrong with me. I needed more therapy. I needed different therapy. The gaslighting is foundational. It's not an aberration,
mm.
it's foundational.
100%. And when you couple that with what you were describing earlier, the intergenerational trauma that you are carrying, that your parents carried from colonization, then coming to this country, being an immigrant, trying to figure things out, doing the best you could, absorbing all this belief system as a means of survival, and then all of that landing on you. So it's just a lot for a person to bear.
Totally. But it's a lot for every, colonialism is by design meant to traumatize. I mean,
Mm,
think about the trauma of indigenous people. Really.
yes.
I mean, it really think about the trauma of black people. It's too much. These books, these kids books that are being written. It's amazing. I just finished reading we just got a draft in from the Truth About the Chinese American Experience, written by a Chinese American woman in Mississippi. I'm Asian, right? We're Asians. So white women, you're Karen with the K, not with the C. You're Karen with an EN, not with the YN. That's how fucking unique you are. We are all just Asians, Asian Americans.
Mm,
And anyway, she wrote this book, which is amazing. And I didn't know 80% of it because we don't know our own history, right? It's Chinese history is obviously not my history, but it's Asian American history. And the trauma of being a Chinese person in this country, the trauma of being a Filipino person in this country, the trauma of being a Mexican American person in this country, a Central American person in this country. Why don't we talk about why people are fleeing Central America? It's
mm,
because of half the shit that we're doing. It's really effed. Yesterday, someone was talking about how in Virginia, you have to be very careful around Afghan refugees because a lot of people here hate Muslims, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, let's just set aside the rampant racism, Islamophobia, xenophobia in that sentence and talk about why they're here.
mm.
We did this. And this whole song and dance about how horrible Russia is horrible. What Russia is doing in Ukraine is horrible, right? What about what we just did in Afghanistan? You
Yeah.
have Afghan people clinging to a plane and falling off.
Mm,
What have we done there? We just pretended like it didn't happen. We've moved on. And now we're criminalizing and excoriating people who are refugees here.
mm.
Who got to we've welcomed white Ukrainians, and we should. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but we need to welcome every single refugee, especially those that we've created.
Yes.
We've
And
created.
who trained Osama bin Laden?
Yeah, exactly.
At the height of the Salvadoran Civil War in the 80s, we were sending $4 million worth of arms a day
Yeah. No.
to a country the size of Massachusetts.
Yep.
So, yeah, all of it. Um, yes. Yeah, exactly, Lisa. Okay, so how did you land on white women? Like why not focus on white people generally, and what do you think is important for white women to know?
So white women, from a very personal back to it takes all kinds, and I'm not here at all to say that white men don't have a ton of work to do.
Yeah.
It's just not mine, it's not my little niche. Because I started doing this work, another part of the trauma is lack of family. So my parents as immigrants left their family behind. I couldn't pick out most of my first cousins out of a lineup. Being estranged from your family, being estranged from your ancestry. When we were raised to assimilate, not to white culture, not to black culture, but to white culture. But it 100% required us to take off anything ethnic. There's no we wouldn't eat Indian food, and my parents would never pack school lunches with Indian food. That would be humiliating. That'd be embarrassing. We would never do that. And so I did that. I did it in spades. I used to be a white woman. I mean, I literally used to be a white woman. How pathetic and sad. But
Well, again,
my
Saira,
I know. My
it's not
closest
defective, it's protective,
totally,
as
totally.
Resma
I
says.
I I
You
don't
were
I'm not
trying to
I don't hate myself for that anymore, but my mom in a nutshell, I made who I thought were the closest friends in my life, a group of white women from college who I met in the Greek system at the University of Virginia. My God, let's talk about me going to fraternity parties and being the only non-white person there with
Mm,
Confederate flags and drunk racist men whispering exotic into my ear. Like, ugh. But anyway, these women were my best friends, and my mom died very suddenly in 2012, and it was the most traumatizing, beyond traumatizing experience of my life. And so I ejected my husband and my kids out of the New York City area and moved to Denver, which is where three of them were, just to be closer to what I perceived as family. And it became very clear very fast that I was not family because I'm not. Like in
mhm,
even though they pretended like I would say things like that when I got there and I actually needed that, it was made very clear that I was not, and then very explicitly made clear to me that race was not a welcome topic to them, and I got ditched by people who I'd known for 25 years, who were the bridesmaids in my wedding, who were my kids' godparents, who flew across the country to come to my mom's funeral. You know, their love for me stopped at whiteness. Whiteness stopped their
mhm,
love for me in its tracks. And so all of the and by the way, they would have done anything for me except for acknowledge their whiteness, acknowledge their white privilege, acknowledge their racism. Anything else, fine. That not okay. And so this notion that personal relationships are going to save us. So when white women are like, my husband's black, or I have black kids, or my girlfriend is Asian, I'm sorry. Personal relationships don't inoculate you from racism, just like personal relationships don't inoculate you from sexism or any ism. And so it was that very personal thing that happened with these women and PS, it really occurred to me some of their husbands voted for Trump. Some
mm,
of their husbands were openly transphobic and they would never say anything in front of them. And
mhm.
I was just like, oh my gosh, they're actually propping up the whole system. Without them, their husbands couldn't exist, right? And so that was to me, and the woman I ran against for Congress, it was a woman, not a man, and she continues to be the worst. And so Nancy Pelosi is a super liberal white woman. She just wasted $90 million of our taxpayer money. By the way, we don't have money for food, clothing, education, housing, nothing, but we have money for Nancy Pelosi to go over to Taiwan. Like,
Don't get me
so
started.
white, there is a long history, Carolyn Bryant. Like, there's a long history of white, and this is all in the movie, Deconstructing Karen. So when it comes out, I hope everyone watches it. A long, damning history of white women in big and small ways. So using themselves to get black and brown people killed, predominantly black men killed, but in every other, calling the cops for what? Black people sitting in a
Mm.
Starbucks, you know, calling the cops if you
An
miss
8-year-old girl selling water on a
lemonade,
hot
water,
day.
whatever it is. It's living. Call it is and crying, right?
Mhm.
Crying. A white woman cries and she derails everything. The whole world stops when a white woman cries. And so we just decided we're going to focus on white women. And then as a real simple thing is the amount of um like we haven't the lion's share of threats that we get are from white men,
Mm.
and in a country where anyone can have a gun at any time, we have very little interest. We're not afraid yet of a white woman showing up to one of our dinners with a gun, but we would be very afraid of having a dinner with men.
Mm. Yes, yes. And right now, your LinkedIn account is
Oh yeah, it's gone. And
gone. Your
my
Facebook account is
well,
gone.
I took that down. It got taken
Okay.
down so many times. I finally was like, you know what? Adios. But LinkedIn is gone. It's still under review. I'm on day 13 now. They have until tomorrow to decide if they're gonna, give it back. But it's
And
gone.
what was the offensive
The offensive
post?
post, there's two. One was made the mistake of watching an episode of The Handmaid's Tale.
Mm.
Um, couple weeks ago, and I posted, oh my God, this is literally white feminism. If white women are confused about what white feminism is, just watch
the show.
Handmaid's Tale. So that was one. That was one of the offending posts that went against the community guidelines, which should be called white supremacy rules. And the other one was I wrote a big post about white people need to stop hating themselves, because it's white people's hatred of themselves and each other that's causing our downfall. It has to be eradicated. And that was the other offending post. So essentially what they said to me is, if you're black or brown, you can't say white. That's the community guideline that they're talking about, but that's not actually explicitly written out. So yeah, I no longer have a LinkedIn profile, which fine, I'm hoping to get it back. But what about all the BIPOC people that this happens to, where they depend on their LinkedIn account to put food on the table? Like, this is they've weaponized this, and it's real. Economic weaponization is white people's favorite thing. Like, that's why black and brown people in corporate spaces, academic spaces, political spaces can't say anything, because the minute you do, you're gone. You're demoted, you're ghosted. Sometimes you're blackballed. Even the term blackballed. Think about language. Why is it blackballed? Why is it a small lie is a white lie, but all the brown and black lies are just lies, big, big lies. So it's very important that we get this out, that those of us who have some semblance of a platform to talk about when this happens to us. And by the way, it happens. Every single black or brown person I know who talks out about racism has had, Instagram taken down, Facebook taken down, LinkedIn. It's not like I'm not unique. It happens all the time.
Yes, I'm constantly helping people get their accounts recovered, get restored back online. And my account has been taken down as well. One of the things they took me down for was posting a Martin Luther King quote. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Very interesting.
Unless it's that I have a dream quote, then they probably
that one is palatable.
A letter from the Birmingham jail or anything like it is not going to be welcome.
Our politicians talk about people seeking refuge in the U.S. because of the weaponry we export. Mexico is suing. Our guns kill around the world.
Yep.
Bravo for parents of Sandy Hook victims suing and getting a confession out of Alex Jones. Racism and gun defense are often perpetuated by the same politicians. It's all the same thing, right? How was a small group of white Protestant male landowners, which of course, whose land did they own? But the land they killed Native Americans, forced them off of, took over, and then imported enslaved people from Africa to work on that land for free. The only way they were able to uphold all of this is through gun violence. And that is the real history of the Second Amendment. That's why it says a well-regulated militia, because in order to maintain slavery, land theft, genocide, all the men had to participate for a few weeks every year on the militias. And the South did not want to let that go when they went into the Constitution. And that is the true origin of the Second Amendment and why it's all tied together.
I mean, here's the thing. I think it's Rick Santorum. I just want to get my lame white guy right. I think it's Rick Santorum. Hang on. Who is calling out for Rick Santorum wants to have a new constitutional convention, right? Here's how these right-wing Nazis are so clever. They have a coherent plan, and they are well financed, and they have a strategy, and they execute on the strategy, and they're not all fighting with each other publicly, right? So what we need to do, let's just be clear. We're putting lipstick on a pig. We're putting a bandage on a Titanic situation. We need to scrap what we have. We need to scrap this Constitution. Yes, we can call it Protestant white landowners. These are white terrorists. These are white Christian terrorists who wrote the Constitution. And we call them the founding fathers. They're the founding fuckers. They are. Why do we defer to them? Well, the Constitution, are you a strict constructionist or a whatever? Like, let's stop pretending like these are legitimate figures. These are not legitimate actors. We need to call a Constitution Convention and scrap it. We need to scrap the existing Constitution. Who cares about the Second Amendment? Who fucking cares? It can be used in any way you want. Who cares about the First Amendment? We're seeing book banning. We're gonna see state sanctioned book burning soon. You know, and everyone keeps getting shocked. Like the shock. I'm sorry. We had Sam Alito's Supreme Court opinion months before it was published. What the fuck did the Democrats do? Nothing. They did nothing. They had no rebuttal. They had no plan. They had no strategy. So when the opinion actually got published, do you remember they all were like, first of all, Biden didn't even say anything for days. For days. There was no response. And now Kansas, the organizers, props and kudos to the awesome organizers in Kansas who just like pulled water out of a stone, you know? And now suddenly the Democrats are scrambling and we don't have a plan.
Yes.
The
corporate Democrats are a huge part of the problem, right?
It's because you can have until and unless we scrap the Constitution and we take money out of politics, it's a foregone conclusion. Like someone the other day was on Twitter and they're like, well, if you hate, not to me, saying it to someone else, if you hate it so much, well, you should just run for office. I mean, you're running for office right now. Karen's running for the California School Board. You know, it is not easy. It is. I didn't take no corporate money. A lot of people aren't. And to just be like, oh, you can just run for office. You know, Diana DeGette gets massive checks from the pharmaceutical companies. Guess what they're doing, by the way?
Pumping our streets full of opioids.
It's just
the biggest drug cartel in the country.
Why is cannabis not legal? Why is cannabis not legal? Because of the freaking pharmaceutical companies. And so anyway, we're chasing our tails, you know, we're chasing our tails. And until
the Constitution gives outsized power to the rural, largely white states in the middle. So the coastal states that are the economic and cultural engine of the country. We, you know, here in California, we have 39 million people and we have 2 senators. And in Wyoming, they have 800,000 people and they have 2 senators. And it's all those states in the middle that are confirming these Supreme Court justices that no one, you know, that don't represent the views of the majority of Americans. So it by design, we cannot use the Constitution to fight the Constitution or to amend the Constitution because it is structurally designed to preserve the power of the rural white landowner.
Yeah, I mean, states' rights is code for whites' rights. You know, it's
100%.
And people who say the system is broken, the system is not broken. No. The system is actually working in ways that they didn't even conceive of.
Oh yeah.
You know, the dividing and conquering that's happening is really in some ways like wilder in their wildest dreams.
Well, they were the master divide and conquer people, you know, when they created the slave codes and the demarcation between who is a indentured servant and who is an enslaved person for life based on race. So yes, they knew about it for their time, and now it's just.
But they could never have conceived of Nikki Haley, a South Asian woman, being just, you know, as powerful and racist as she is, or having Kamala Harris, a half South Asian woman, half Black woman, going to Central America and looking at the brown people and saying, do not come, do not come. I mean, it's like, it's kind of in their wildest dreams that this has happened. So the system's not broken. We need a new system.
Yes.
So we need to get rid of this. Rick Santorum's not wrong. We do need a constitutional convention. We actually do. And we need to show up and change it.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. For our kids already, the majority of children in America are children of color. By 2040, we will be a global majority country. So we need to have political institutions that reflect who actually lives here and how we want to live.
Yeah,
It,
but you know this, the concept of whiteness changes to protect whiteness.
mm,
So the even look at South Africa. You know, it's even if we move into that in terms of what the numbers are showing with the census, which is scare the crap out of white people, whiteness will prevail until and unless whiteness and white supremacy is eradicated. It doesn't even matter in terms of
mm,
the numbers.
yes. Well, I think that's the struggle that we're in right now
Yeah.
is whiteness resisting and doubling downing and using every tool at our disposal to try to cling to our position of power as the country shifts underneath. And what is, that is the source of so much upheaval and strife, when if we would just see each other's humanity and see our own humanity and recognize how all of this only benefits the 1%. Like the Jeff Bezos became a trillionaire during the pandemic, the billionaires increased their wealth exponentially, and the entire middle class hollowed out. And
Mhm.
now more than 50% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, including a lot of high income Americans are barely clinging on. And this whole myth of individual meritocracy and if you're struggling, it's because you're not working hard and you're not doing the right things. It's all on you to succeed, is literally driving, our life expectancy is declining. We have the worst expectancy among wealthy industrialized countries, and it's going down, and it's going down the fastest among white people.
Yeah. No, it totally. Oh, sorry. Let's see what he's.
Wow. Climate change, expensive coasts, and remote work are causing relocation towards the center of the country. Could that change central US politics? I would hope so,
Yeah,
you
that's an
know.
interesting point. There's
And a
so much
lot of
movement.
immigrants are moving
Yeah,
to
and there's a lot of movement happening. That's a really good
yeah,
point. Let's see. But I don't even know if we have time to see, like
yeah.
we've got this midterm. By the way, you said, you know, the word humanity. I just want to pinpoint that, and this is what got me banned from LinkedIn is, and let's be clear, I've been banned. They're just reconsidering putting me back. It's not like they took me out of circulation for a couple of days. Um, your own humanity.
Yes.
White people need to focus on your own humanity. Don't talk about anyone else's, talk about your own. And the level of self-loathing and
Mm.
self-hatred, and that's the thing is we'll say this at every dinner, and usually one white woman will get it. We'll say, "Who do you all hate?" Because by the end of the dinner, at least, 75% of them hate Regina and I. "Who do you all hate more than the two of us?"
Mm.
And one of the women who's in the 25% of the people who's kind of like, not hating us at the end of the dinner, raises her hand and says, "Us
Mm.
and each other." Cat fighting, white women refer to as
Oh
cat
my
fighting.
God.
All you do with each other
Competing
is
with their friends,
compete, compete.
ostracizing their friends,
Totally.
gossiping and
How much weight has
undermining.
she? "Oh my god, she's gained 5 pounds, she's gained 10 pounds. Her husband is cheating on so and so. Someone has a drinking problem." All one of you gets up from a dinner party, and goes to the bathroom or at a restaurant, and my god, it's like you're taking your own life into your hands because the amount of shit that's gonna be talked about you when you leave to go pee is, like,
Please,
outrageous.
white women, stop with the transactional, superficial, undermining friendship. Learn how to be a true friend.
But you don't know that because you haven't been taught it, and I'm seeing it. I mean, I've got kids, right? Middle school kids, and it's happening. These white girls, it's happening, and I'm doing everything in my power to undo it at home, but then I seem like the crazy person, like, you can't undo, the all of
The
society,
dominant
all of
culture.
yeah, and it's really wild that trained to just care about stuff, shopping and accumulating things and, be nice. Don't talk about
Mhm,
anything hard or painful, be nice. And so the whole culture, I think that what Regina and I really focus on is pointing out white supremacy traits that white people don't recognize as white culture. So white
Mm,
women's niceness is a foundational principle of white supremacy. Being
mm,
nice is a foundational principle of white supremacy. Being perfect, being obsessed with the way you look, being thin, right? Fat phobia is based in white supremacy.
yes.
Ableism is based in white supremacy. So having the perfect functioning, beautiful, toned body, being 60 years old and still being able to have children. You know, how many of these People magazine stories do we see? Look at my beautiful body and I'm still giving birth to children. It's that kind of stuff. When you start seeing it, you can't unsee it. And
Mhm.
it's every second
It's
of every
everywhere.
hour and every day.
Yeah, we're constantly being bombarded, whether it's movies, television, advertising, music. It is e- everywhere we go, and then it replicated in our social, interpersonal interactions, what we learned growing up, um, over and over again.
Right.
And it's a lifetime of conditioning that is also rooted in our intergenerational trauma as white people. And when you realize that you're a part of it, it's also a lifetime. It's not like you immediately unconditioned from it. It is a continuous
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
to uproot.
We have a program at Race to Dinner called Race to Community, and it's
Mm,
white women led by a white woman. And there's no mention of Black people. There's no mention of Indigenous people. There's no mention of brown people, Asian people, Latino people. You talk about amongst yourselves about your own whiteness
mm,
and deconstructing your own whiteness and being in sisterhood with each other. Don't
mm,
stop thinking about us. Start thinking
mhm.
about yourselves and making yourself right.
Yes.
Seriously. And I do think what's interesting, we get this a lot at the end of a dinner. At least, a couple of women will be like, well, we just want to be your friends. To me and Regina, we don't want to be your friends. Be
Mhm.
friends with each other.
Yes.
Be friends with each other, and then we can start talking. But
Yes.
as it is right now, we don't trust you and we have no reason to trust you. And Black women have no reason to trust me either. Like we all have to make things right before we can expect trust. Trust
One,
is a
we
privilege.
have to earn trust.
Yep.
Yes. And to that point, I highly recommend watching a couple episodes ago, Dr. Corey Wong and her feminist friendship TEDx talk, but also tune into the Collect Our Cousins with Dr. Corey Wong. I've had this whole series of Colorado guests. It's been really cool. And although you're no longer in Colorado, I still associate you with Colorado. Saira, if you could wave a magic wand, and I know you've already shared a couple of things, but if you could wave a magic wand and get white people to either start doing something or stop doing something, what would it be and why?
Start racializing yourselves.
Mm,
It's so sad the bar is so low, it's like 6 feet under, like, how pathetic. But
hmm
if white people start seeing yourselves as white people rather than just people, I'm Indian, I'm brown, or I'm a Paki, I'm worse, right? Um, Asian American, we all are hyphens, but you all are just people. The minute you start racializing yourself, you can start doing the work. But until and unless you do that, my white colleague, my white friend, my white neighbor, you all don't do that. You
mm,
don't. Even those of you who are pretty far along in this work don't do that. And I'm around all sorts of white women, and it's very rare that I hear white people racializing themselves.
mm,
And we can't even start or you all can't even start the work. And I'll give you one quick example, and I know we got to go. Um, a former white friend of ours, we were all hanging out one day, and my son must have been, this was what, 6 years ago or so. My son must have been 5 or 6, and this little boy, their son, we'll call him Ted, asked my son who his upcoming play date with, and he said to Ted, "Is your friend this little boy, is your friend white or brown?" And
mm.
my son answered brown, and his dad hears from out of the corner, "Ted, that is a horrible question to ask. That is rude." And I was like, "No, it's not. No, it's not. That's the exact right question to ask. Why is that rude? It's not, there's nothing to be ashamed of." And that's what we need to see.
So growing up, my parents taught me racism is terrible. Dr. Martin Luther King is wonderful. And the way to not be racist is to be colorblind and treat everybody the same. So
Right.
we were conditioned. You
Uh-huh.
never notice or
Right.
mention
Right.
anyone's
Right.
race
Right.
because that would be racist.
Right. Right. Totally.
We hear from Valerie. Yes, white folks need to look at self loathing. It drives just about everything they do. And love that dinner led by white person. Affinity work is essential to white folks waking up and seeing themselves as racialized beings.
So I
At
want to say
least,
one thing to you, Valerie. I think you're white, but you use the word they.
right.
Everything they do. So that's a place to start. Everything we do. It's,
Yes.
it's just you're a white person. Unless you're
Yeah.
not, then I apologize.
Include yourself. Yes. The Mean Girls Club, now the Mean Woman Club. I have had more drama with white women throughout my career than anyone else. I expect it now because I see how they treat each other. Why would I be any different?
Exactly. And Lisa Bond, our white woman on our team who runs Race to Community, said to Regina and I not too long ago, she said, it occurred to me that we hate you all so much because you don't hate yourselves.
Mm.
And yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's
But we've worked very
jealousy. It's
hard. I've worked very
jealousy.
hard not to hate myself.
Yes, it's jealousy of your confidence, jealousy of your love for yourself, jealousy of your intense love for each other, and having that sense of community
Yeah.
when you feel, when you know, just like you said, that you're out at dinner with your friends, and if you get up and go to the bathroom, they'll all be gossiping about you, because if one of them gets up and goes to the bathroom, you're gossiping about
Totally.
them.
Totally. And and then I really do have to hop, Karen.
Yes.
Regina said to me early on in early days, because I was still a white woman when we first started, or I was coming out of it. And I said, are you talking I said to her one day, "Are you talking shit about me behind my back?" And she goes, "I don't need your back to talk shit about you." I was like, "Great." Valerie, awesome. So just think about language. Yeah. I mean, you are a white woman, so it's never they or them, it's me and us. Um, and Valerie, I hope you buy our book, White Women. You can use it. It's a quick read, and I hope everyone does.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Saira. How can people follow you? Where can we buy the book?
Yeah, just go to race to the number dinner.com. All of our social media is there, and go to any barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com. Not that I love to give those companies money, but that's where you can get our book most easily.
Bookshop.org.
Shop.org.
Yes.
Anywhere. And
And
by the
the
way, Chelsea
movie,
Handler just blurbed it. So if Chelsea Handler found it to be useful, I think most white women will.
good. The movie,
The movie is we have a big deal that's not yet announced on Friday, but Canada is going to be able to see it very soon. And if any of you know any white gatekeepers at HBO, Netflix, Showtime, let us know, because right now they're all struggling with this content. So we're still looking for distribution in the US, but we're hitting a bunch of film festivals this fall. So keep an eye out. Follow our social media, please.
yes. And what is the name of the movie?
Deconstructing Karen. Lisa, I would love to go out for a drink or two
Lisa is
anytime.
amazing. I highly recommend connecting with her. Real New Yorker,
Love it.
real talk. And she hosts interracial sisterhood conversations as well.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yay!
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day and see us next week on Collect Our Cousins, Engaging White People in the Struggle for Full Democracy. I believe our guest is Steve Phillips. That's going to be an amazing show. Steve is the author of Brown is the New White, and he is an incredible political strategist on the new American majority. So,
Awesome. Thanks.
see you next week. Bye.
Bye.